All right, we'll call the January meeting of the Troy Planning Board to order. Would you please stand? Member Shufel will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, I'll call the roll. Member Shufel.
Present.
Member Scully.
Here.
Member Dickinson.
Here.
Member York, absent. Member Keough, present. We have a quorum. I think the first order of business would be to approve the minutes of the previous two meetings, November and December. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from the November meeting as well as the December meeting.
Thank you. A second?
Second it.
Thank you. Motion made second. Any discussion? So all in favor, signal aye. Say aye.
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 Opposed? So motion carries. Next order of business would be item 24008 on the agenda, 125 River Street. Is applicant present?
Oh, it's not. That's usually one. So here,
Tell me the batteries are. Okay, perfect.
This one always gets strong. Steal one of your mics?
Yeah, you might need to.
Oh, you're okay.
There we go. Okay, now that we got technical difficulties out of the way, my name is Roger Keating. I'm from Labella Associates. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Taylor Apartments project with Penrose. With me tonight are representatives from Penrose, as well as our architect isn't here just yet, but that's okay. That architect will be here this evening. So I'm going to go over a bit of the history here, just to get the board back up to speed here. So what you see here is an aerial view of the the Taylor Apartment site. So the Congress Street Bridge is kind of in the middle there, and our project is the bookends of either side of that. Just to do a little bit of background and history here as to where we've been. And so as we've gone through this process, we started with site plan here last year. We worked through site plan with seeker back in July, where the planning board acted on seeker with a neg deck, and then there was a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals for a number of variances. We were successful earlier this month at the ZBA for the variances that we had requested, and now we're back before the planning board to seek site plan approval. Just to give you a little bit of the setting, as we had indicated before, this is the existing site. The Taylor 2 site has existing buildings 3 and 4. That's what you can see on the screen here on the left and the right. As part of the project, we'll ultimately end up demolishing those buildings and then replacing those with 2 new structures. Just to give you a bit of context here as to where we are, once again, Congress Street Bridge is kind of on that lower right-hand corner. You can see we bookend either side. The Taylor 1 site, which is the apartment project that we've just finished up, is across the street from us. And as we are looking to occupy that structure, I believe in the end of the first quarter here, we'll end up having 100% occupancy. Just another phasing piece of it here. You can see where phase 1 was, is the Taylor 1 site across the street with our buildings, on either side of it. This is just a progress shot of where we were, and quarter 2, 100% occupancy. So just to get into the site plan a little bit, so we have proposed the buildings here to kind of follow the property line. So the site is bound by right-of-ways on all sides: River Street, Division Street, Front Street, Congress Street on the north end, and then the bridge that goes between the two. So it's a unique piece of property. That was part of the reason why we had a number of variances, just because of the shape of it. And we have a combination of underbuilding parking as well as surface mounted parking, as you can see here on the plan. We also have areas designated for playgrounds, outdoor space for the residents. The site has access to public water, sewer, stormwater management facilities. All those are readily available and have adequate capacity to service the project. As part of our project, we also are doing a benefit for a combined sewer disconnect over there. And we are looking to provide, I think it was 300 units for this phase 2, 308, as part of this plan. And I'll turn it over to John. I see you're here. So John's going to go over some of the renderings of the building, which is really exciting structure. And John, I'll turn it to you.
Sorry for my delayed arrival. Just came in on Amtrak, but it's great to be here with you tonight. Roger showed you some of the phase 1 building. That went through a process with the Historic Review Board, and we've taken some of our design cues from that design that you see here, which is in the kind of the left-hand side of this. But one of the things that we are doing is we are articulating the corner with the brickwork. We've got some varied materials. We've set up some horizontal datums. I'll show you that as we go through here. Some of the things that might be a little bit new that you're seeing for the first time, because I know some of you have seen these materials before, is some of that change in material that we have at the corner of this is Congress Street and River. And so we have that step down that goes to a material that is gray, that is a cement board siding. We use that same material on the phase 1 building. but a lot of brick where it faces the building right across the street, the historic building that's across the street. Oops, sorry. So Roger mentioned briefly the site plan, some of the factors that are influencing the design. We have a model here that also shows that, but we have this this curved facade that's really a result of some of the restrictions that we have on the site because of the bridge, the easements that are there. And what we've done with that facade, that curved facade, is we've broken it up into a series of flat surfaces that are very evocative of the scale of the buildings that we see downtown. We've organized that segment into a 3-window bay arrangement, which you see that's very frequently in historic areas. So the spacing of the windows, the grouping of it, the way it's expressed, the way there's a base that's expressed in brick, it's a very traditional way of doing this type of building. You see this sort of fabric in historic areas. So we're not necessarily doing a historic recreation. We're doing something that is a contemporary interpretation of that. So we've also introduced, and it's maybe hard to see on these images, but the top 2 floors have a cement board panel that has a different spacing. So we're accentuating the top of the building by using that different spacing at those 2 top floors. And that 2-story at the top, that datum, that 2 stories starts at the brick corner that I just showed here. So everything is kind of tying together. There's the horizontal datums that we're creating. And what you see probably most clearly in this curved facade is, or in all these renderings, one of the things that's most clearly indicated here is that coping that happens at the top of the building, which is a way for that cement board to finish and to meet the sky. We felt it was actually important to have the building have some consistency horizontally and not to change heights, try to make it look like it's a bunch of different buildings. That's not what this is. This is one building, one cohesive building. And there's, when we did the phase 1 building, we did a presentation to the historic review board, and there was a dialogue that we went through with them, but we showed some of the precedents that are in downtown Troy, and some of those building designs have influenced how we've approached this. In bigger buildings, they don't necessarily break it up and do like a little cornice and kind of change things throughout the whole facade. We wanted there to be an integrity to this building so that there wasn't some applied variation of height or something that didn't really make sense with the massing of the building. And I think you see that most clearly here. This is the riverfront, obviously, because you can see the river in the foreground. One of the other moves that we've done recently is we've changed how these ends of the buildings, and this is building the southern building, sorry, the northern building in the foreground, and the southern building is in the background. But we've done the same thing with both of those ends of the buildings where there is some articulation, and on that courtyard, that cement board panel curves around on the inside. So it actually comes around and it wraps around a little bit. So there's some articulation, some change material. And again, that picks up on that 2-story kind of consistent architectural treatment that we have around the cement panels. This is more of a boat view, but I think still very compelling. Here you really get to see those courtyards that are created by those curves of the building. And that's really where we're locating a lot of the amenities for the residents. And you really see how those ends of the buildings work together and change the scale of those ends of the buildings. Back to the corner facade, we have some non-residential use, probably going to be some sort of retail at the corner of Congress and River. We have a parking entrance down the street that comes into the base of the building and has access to Front Street. But some of the materials that we are going to be using here pick up largely on what we've done at phase 1. You can see the little swatches in the lower right-hand side. But it's a very similar kind of rustic brick that picks up on the warm tones of the neighborhood and the context. We've got a darker base brick that will be some infill of openings where we have those conditions, primarily at the parking level where we have replications of punched openings. And then we're using the panel cladding, these two different colors. The middle, the main lighter gray is that cement panel that I described above the brick. And then the top, the coping is in this darker color. And that darker color will also be used at spandrel conditions to group windows. That's another thing that we're doing here. That's another scale move. We're grouping windows to have a relationship not only with the large monumental windows of some of the other buildings in the downtown district, but also the building that's just being completed across the street, which we do a very similar thing there. And this is the other building. So very similar techniques. We really see these two buildings as sisters and maybe a cousin of the phase one building. And that's it. That's our progress.
Are the residential units all going to be on the River Street level, or some going to be down on the Front Street level?
They are all going to be out of the floodplain, if that's the question behind your question. But basically, we have parking at grade when you're at the front streets. Okay.
You go back to.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes, okay. So this is, even though you can see the parking level at these plans, this is really the level that's above that parking level. So you get to those,
And is the main access to these buildings all going to be from Front Street?
Well, actually, sorry, from River Street. So I'm going to step away from the microphone just to point out.
Pedestrians.
Yeah, pedestrians will access. So here's the main lobby
Mhm.
of this building. Here's the main lobby. So we come in from River Street, and one of our initial urban design moves was to continue that River Street frontage, that activation. What's just north of this is really kind of a vibrant downtown historic area. So we wanted to continue that traffic down to the south. And we're doing that by locating the retail and the residential entrances along that frontage. So that's why, so good question. Yeah, that's why that's there.
So the building to the north, Taylor 2 North, I guess.
Yep, to the left, yeah.
So that does line up with the old 1888 building.
I mean, it's not precisely
Not
lined up, but
precisely.
yeah, I mean, one of the big challenges that we have here is the bridge. Yeah, exactly. So we're doing the best that we can to line things up, respect the sidewalk locations. But there is, I think, a relationship height-wise and how there's some changes in material. So I think it's a good companion building and a good context.
How does that compare height-wise to the 1888? Is it the same? Is it the same?
I think the 1888 building is a little bit taller.
A little bit taller.
Yeah.
What's the status of DOT?
Well, it's a city project, so it's DOT has a review portion of it. But my last discussions with Creighton Manning, who are the designers for the city, was that they're getting close to settling on a final concept of like what the vision is going to be. They did some presentations of the bridge and the corridor over the summer. There was 2 public meetings where they got a lot of great feedback. And the good thing about the way we've approached this project is that we've made sure that this project, the way we've designed it, will work in the present day. If the project, the bridge project never was to happen, this design holds true, but it's also factoring in what those future plans could be to make sure that it could work both ways. So, but I can't speak to their timeline, just other than that. I know
Well, I
that
guess the
they're getting
question
close.
Is there, based on the last presentation DOT had, you don't have an overlay of what the last one was, do you?
I don't think I have, I don't think I have the overlay on there. The aerial might have it.
What it sort of looks like.
Okay, yeah, so if we get back to the first page here, let's see, I'll catch up.
Okay.
So there is a more representation of the River Street being continuing north and south. I mean, that's the goal of that project
what I was
is yes, but as you can see in that image there, it's back to John's point, is trying to make sure we keep the street wall as much as we can.
But there's easements and things that we can't.
Correct. Yeah. But what John is saying is there's a bunch of easements for utilities and such that are on our property.
Also, the curvature of the building, I mean.
Jim, would you pull your mic in?
I'm sorry.
Sure.
So with the curvature of the building design, that's because of the ramps that are currently owned by the state of New York.
Yeah, we're following the property line. Yeah.
So you can't really do much about that.
It's not our property.
Right.
So we're hoping that DOT never changes their mind when they get further down the road.
Well, that's where if we work to our property line,
Yeah.
that's where we can make sure that it works
It
in both
doesn't- It
directions.
doesn't bother
And,
them.
and then also being respectful of their easements that they have on the property from utilities. They have a drainage easements and things like that run along the property that are within our site. We're also making sure that we're working to those so that however they need to utilize those later, that they can be used later on.
Any other questions?
I think so.
All right, thank you.
So Eric, do you have anything on the staff reports or anything like that that we need to discuss? Okay. So I guess next steps here, we're hoping that we could get, a request for approval. We're not sure what the board's thoughts are. So we'll turn that back to
I
you.
think we'll have see if there's any public comment
Okay.
first.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone here to comment on this proposal? If not, I guess we'll go back to board action. So the applicant is requesting approval.
I'll make a motion to give them final approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And discussion? Is there anything in the staff report that you would want to
I guess I'm,
condition? or-
they're complying with all of the recommended architectural guidelines. Eric, is that correct?
Yeah, I think a lot of our guidelines, some of them are open to interpretation, so.
Right.
What about the provision that large roof surfaces shall be interrupted by roof features?
The language in the code requires large roof surfaces to be interrupted by roof features. If you guys believe that accomplished this, then that's your decision.
That's the idea of the cornice, in other words.
That's in a separate line item under the architectural guidelines.
Do you have any input on that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll step into this. What I mentioned in the presentation was our interpretation. I think Eric is absolutely right. There's, I think this is kind of in the eye of the beholder, or maybe that's my words. I don't know. But what we have done along this curved facade, and I like to call the cording is kind of fluttering. It's got this movement to it. We have introduced a cornice that's at the top of it. It's not at different heights, and that's very deliberate. I think if it was at different heights, it just wouldn't have the consistency, and it wouldn't look like it was part of this whole composition. So I think this is an appropriate for a contemporary interpretation of what's kind of a historic or historically influenced design.
Do you think the change in the angles of the facade accomplishes that?
Absolutely, yeah. There's actually you may be able to see it, but there's a physical break in those two, so they're in different planes. I think it's a very dynamic, and I think we've taken a really challenging site condition and made it into an asset. with this kind of fluttering and movement so I think I'm very proud of this design. It
Deck
was
of cards and went like that and just went-
sorry, what was that?
It looks like you took a deck of cards and went,
Yeah.
flip it
Yep,
so
yep.
that it makes those juts.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Anyone?
No,
Well, we have a motion before us to give final approval. No further discussion. We'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. with
Appreciate
the
it.
project. The next item is 2024-0058, 39 to 45 Congress Street. Welcome back.
Thank you. Evening to the board. Give me one moment here. I'm going to pull up my presentation. I think I'm on a record here. I've been here quite a bit over the last few months. Different projects, but nonetheless. Okay, my name is Joe Pernicero. I'm here on behalf of the applicant RDC Troy Holdings LLC, which is an LLC owned and operated by Redburn Development Partners, development company based right down the street here in Troy. Our project tonight is 3945 Congress Street. We introduced it last month. It is the conversion of the Russell Sage dormitory known as Manning Hall into 71 market rate apartments. Here tonight, hopefully seeking final approval, conditioned upon the one area variance that we need to obtain from the zoning board at next month's meeting, which I'll get into in a second, as well as secret determination. So I'll run through the presentation quickly. It hasn't changed much since what I showed you last month. Then I'll gladly, take any comment from the public or the board. Refresher on the location. Again, the property was most recently a dorm for Russell Sage College. The property is still owned by the college. We are under contract to purchase it. The interior layout will remain mostly unchanged. Essentially, the project is to take the dorms on the upper levels and convert them into one-bedroom apartments. The lower level and the first floor have a bit more construction. They were using it for class space and staff offices. Those apartments are a bit bigger and require some more construction. It was determined after last meeting that we do need one area variance. That is to allow for the average apartment square footage to be less than the required amount. So our average square footage is about 520 square feet. And that's just due to the size of the existing dorms upstairs. We are essentially taking two dorms that are already connected and making that one apartment. The required square footage for existing buildings is 700 square feet. We are requesting one variance to allow for our average to be 520 square feet.
Does that allow for averaging the square footage, or is it the minimum square footage per unit?
Nope, it is an average square footage across the building. Yep. Yeah, we went back and forth with Angelina and Eric on that. And I believe the exact variance request is 180 square feet of relief on the average.
So that 520 that you're mentioning, that's an average,
That is an average of all the apartments in the building,
including the larger ones on the first two
including the
floors?
larger ones.
So
Yep.
what's the size of the smallest?
So
ones?
the upper floors, I would say most of them are around 500 square feet. It's just that that's the overwhelming majority of the units. Of the 71, off the top of my head, 50 plus are on the upper floors. So those are all around 500 square feet. And then the ones on the lower floors range between, 650 and 800 square feet. More, so as I mentioned, lower floors require more construction. We're going to be adding full bathrooms, full kitchens. where the upper floors, it's really just building in a kitchen within a part of the existing dorm. All the existing bathrooms will be retained. They'll be upgraded, of course. The project also includes construction of amenities on the ground floor. So a fitness center with weights and treadmills, a game room with TVs and pool table and ping pong, and a small roof deck on the top of the building. Some comments from last time was about trash. So we do have an interior trash room on the bottom floor near the back of the building, which will be white gloved out of the building. So the trash company will pull into the alley momentarily. They'll have a fob enter the building, remove the trash bins, bring them out, dump them in, and then bring the trash bins back into the building. We submitted a traffic demand management plan, which determined that the project will not have any negative impact on the traffic network. We've also begun discussions with CDTA on the universal access pass, which is the first time for us, but we're really interested in that. Beyond that, I do have a couple of photos, but I will take any comment from the public or the board.
You haven't, so have you been in front of the ZBA?
We have not. So we were going to go last month, but there's an issue with timing. 30 days were required from when you determine yourself lead agency. So we tabled it until this upcoming February 5th meeting.
Where does the trash company have access to the building, on the alley or?
Yep, on the alley. So actually that photo on the right, where those current trash cans are, there's the gate right there. They'll have a fob to that gate where they can open it up, go in the alley. There'll be a fob on the back door, and then the trash room's right at the bottom of those
But the
stairs.
trash truck will be on the street then?
It'll be on the alley where
On
it
the
currently is. That's, I believe, where they currently pick it up. Obviously, you see the trash cans there.
Anything else?
I will defer to any public comment or any further questions.
Can I ask a question? Sure, of course.
Do you have any provision with regard to battery powered bikes with respect, not to charging, but storage?
That is a question that I don't have an exact answer for. I know we do because I live in one of our buildings and there's a sign in the lobby that says something about battery chargers. I would have to get back to you on that. I do not, I assume we have some provision because I know there have been issues in the past about electric bikes and charging and storage. I don't have an exact answer for you.
I guess I was asking mainly for because they have quite a fire potential if they're not well maintained or.
The batteries themselves. So the building is not currently sprinkled. I can speak to the fire protection we're going to put in place. We are going to fully sprinkle the building. We've already met with the fire department and, kind of went over our plan for the building with them. I assume the project management side of our company has some policies in place to address that. But I don't want to speak on that without getting the exact information.
If you could get the policies and
Yeah.
provide them to the board, I think it might be useful.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
I have a question. On page 7 of your environmental, it asks about, will the proposed action generate or emit methane? And you don't have an answer to that. I'm assuming it's probably no.
It's probably, yes, it's definitely no.
Okay, and then on page 10, I'm being picky. You have answered, are there any facilities serving children, elderly people with disabilities? You didn't answer it, but then you went on to identify it. So that should be a yes, but just being picky, just make sure that everything is, cross your
That's just,
T's and dot your I's.
yep, I apologize. That's just fat fingering and not checking the box. But obviously there are facilities in the downtown that
Yeah.
service them.
Any further questions?
Did you have questions about the windows? No?
Oh.
I think that we discussed that last time through. Now, the windows, the black windows
Mhm.
in the basement on
yes.
River Street
I
side, or
recall.
the Second Street side.
Yep.
You're gonna check into it. There's like vents that went through.
There
Must
are,
be
so
Dryer, washer, dryer.
There are. So I took my historic, he's on our staff, our historic consultant down there. We walked it. There are 2 instances where they punched out 1 block for a
Right.
dryer vent. He thinks that he can find, we can take that out and basically infill 1 block He's preparing some documents and sourcing a block from somewhere, and we'll submit that to, HRC if it
So
needs.
without looking at the floor plan, those windows, those are going to be common area rooms or are those going to be bedrooms? I mean,
Those will be living area rooms.
okay, so I'm concerned about egress. I mean, if somebody had to get out of the window, how do you get out of a black window?
So I believe per the code, you don't need to have an emergency egress in
Okay.
every room. Especially in a fully sprinkled building, I would have to cite the exact code for you. But we have several instances across apartments in Troy where there's no emergency egress.
So those apartments would have no windows through which you could see what's around on
The
outside?
glass block is semi-opaque. No, you really can't. It's not a full.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a benefit for privacy because obviously those are at street level.
Any further questions? If not, we'll see if there's any public comment. Thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anyone here to speak on this proposal? No? Okay, so I think the first thing we have to do, I think, is seeker determination. We are lead agency. And the staff report indicates it's a type 1 action. Is there a motion with respect to seeker?
I make a motion that we accept the seeker type 1.
Second,
I second.
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So then I think the next business is whether or not to approve, give final approval. And Yep.
Just to clarify, I understood the motion to accept this as a type 1 to be its own separate motion. The determination still needs to be had.
In other words, a declaration. Whether or not it's a negative declaration, whether or not it will have a significant adverse effect on the environment.
okay, so first before,
I move to declare a negative declaration seeker.
second,
I second it.
discussion. All in favor? Say
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Tony, was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, now consider approval, and if you're inclined to approve it, I believe there's a recommendation that if you approve it, there'd be a condition that the variance be granted and that we either recommend the granting of the variance or recommend against granting of the variance. So will we do that all in one motion?
So what you're saying is we could approve it contingent upon
Contingent
them getting ZBA approval for their square footage.
Correct. You're kind of,
We're done.
you're here to be also two different things. One, you want to weigh in as to whether or not you want to send your blessing or not to the ZBA for their request to get a variance. And also a motion to approve or deny the project.
ZBA
Um,
first.
Yeah, I think we should send them to the ZBA first, actually.
Without approval or contingent on approval?
Um,
Our approval
Contingent on
contingent upon the ZBA
So-
approval?
You could contingent an approval upon their obtaining a variance.
You can issue a conditional approval, in other
Conditional.
words. Okay, that you approve the site plan subject to the ZBA granting the variance.
And we can include in that motion a recommendation that they do or do not. approve.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So
Well, I would move to approve conditioned upon ZBA approval of your 520 square foot average per unit. And then also make a recommendation to the zoning board to approve that.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you to the board. I think I'll be back up in a few minutes.
Thank you. Take care. Excuse me, are you also here on 0002?
6047 Ave?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, do you want to do that now?
We can, yes.
604.
Yeah, that's right.
002. 604 7th Ave. It's page 9.
Aye.
Maybe home sooner than I told my fiance. Okay. Do we need to wait for him, Eric? Eric, do we need to wait for him?
No internet.
Are you ready?
Just waiting for
Oh.
Rach, I believe.
Oh, thank you.
Well, if you want to start your presentation.
Okay. All right. Good evening to the board again. So this project, the applicant is Lansing Fields LLC, which is what we're calling this potential subdivision. Tonight, we are here seeking that you just deem our application complete, potentially you declare yourselves lead agent on seeker, and maybe schedule a hearing at a future date. The address is 604 7th Ave. That is the gym and field parcel of the old Catholic High, which our company purchased at the beginning of 2024. And we are completing a renovation of the school and gym into 98 apartments, separate project. We're just about done with that. As a side note, we've begun leasing. We actually have, as of this morning, I believe 24 signed leases, and people are starting to move into the building. Really happy with how that project came out, especially as a graduate. It's a bit eerie now walking through there, but nonetheless, very proud of it. This project, back to the subject, is a subdivision of the field and gym parcel to prepare for future development along 7th Ave. Again, tonight, we're just really discussing the subdivision, not really the idea down the road. It's an existing 5.5 acre lot into 14 lots, which I will show you in a second. As I mentioned, this was the football field and the gymnasium. All right. You have this map in front of you, but I will show it on the screen. So the top there, that is the existing gym building and the new parking lot that we built. That's all done. And then that continues along the right back edge of the property. That big white area in the bottom right corner, that is the old practice field. That's a big flat area. So all of that will stay with the gym parcel. Kind of, will become not part of this project. The middle section on the bottom, that is the rest of the field. That will also just stay one large parcel, which we don't have many plans for right now. It'll have its frontage along 115th. And then you've got 12 new parcels right along 7th Ave, which we will be potentially developing into single-family townhomes. We will be submitting to the zoning board for area variances due to the width of the parcels. They're a bit smaller than what's required in this area. So we'll have that submission going in the next week or so. Some photos here. If it goes. Photo on the left is standing in front of the new parking lot that we built. It's just south of the gym, looking south down the football field. Your bottom right corner is standing on 7th Ave, looking out towards the woods there, up towards Oakwood Cemetery. Top left is looking north down 7th Ave. You see the gym in the background there. So the new lots will be right here along 7th Ave, going from this corner down towards the gym. And then the photo on the bottom right is the rest of the field, which will, essentially stay as it looks right now. That is all I had. I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, tonight we're just seeking hopefully a complete application, lead agency, and answer any, introductory questions you might have.
Any questions?
Yeah, on 7th Avenue, you're gonna have 14 townhouses right on 7th Avenue going from one end of the field to the other end of the field.
12
12.
townhouses, and they'll be built in groups of 4. So 3 groups of 4.
Okay, and so that whole football field, other than the place that you have in the back that's been reserved, that's all gonna be their property? From the front to the back of that football field? the
Nope.
original?
So you'll see that they just have smaller backyards. And then the main field will be retained by us. So they'll have, I may have the depth of the parcels. So they have small backyards. They're about 25 feet by 25 feet. That's their property. And then the rest is, private property owned by us there.
Okay, is that gonna stay the way it is now? Or you're not going to be planning any more development behind them?
We have no plans right now. If we did, we'd probably have to bring in a new street, and, it's a significantly larger project than what we're proposing right now. We initially, when we introduced this to the neighborhood, we did meet with the neighborhood on this. We showed them around Catholic High, the apartments, and introduced this idea. We actually did propose developing the whole field into townhomes. After meeting with them, and then also, discussing with the city staff and kind of internally, we dialed it back to just along 7th Ave.
Okay.
So I can't tell from here, what are the width of the lots that you're?
So they vary. The smallest ones are 23 feet wide. The larger ones are in the 30 feet and 33 feet. 40 feet is the requirement. Those are the area variances we're going to be requesting from the zoning board.
Access by auto would be through the current new parking lot? Is that what? I can't.
There is no access by auto except for on 7th Ave. So there's no,
Only on seven.
yeah, there's no parking requirement for single family homes. So that, there would be no, you'd be accessing them from the street.
So these will be 3 or 4 units with party walls, basically, and then a space, and then 3 or 4
Correct. So
units?
it's 3 buildings, 4 townhomes each with
Who will own the space between the?
so the edge unit will, the unit on the edge of the building will own up until about halfway through that parcel.
And is that space wide enough? How wide would that space be between those units?
Tell you, if you give me 1 second, I may have to look that up.
Vehicle access or?
Probably not. You're saying down the road if they wanted to put a driveway in. I don't think that'd be that wide enough. I believe it's only 10 or 12 feet. The largest one on the corner, maybe a bit wider, but no.
So is there any off-street parking with these whatsoever? Or
Yeah, right on the
is there
front.
any off-street parking
Not right now.
right now?
Did
Just
you
street
see the note in the staff report? There seems to be maybe an ambiguity about whether or not off-street parking is required.
I don't know if there's an ambiguity about whether it's required. I believe we confirmed that it's not required. Eric, could you opine on that?
Yeah, parking is not required. I think that there was some kind of conflicting information in the materials they submitted. And there was like, yeah, a noted driveway on the site plan. So I just
Correct, yeah. So
figured you could clarify for the record.
that's probably the confusion, is that one of the documents submitted was a conceptual plan for the townhomes, just to kind of keep you informed on what could go there. And those did have driveways, but after speaking with staff, driveways seems to require a lot of variances in this area, and they're not typical. So we're going to remove those, and it would just be parking on the street.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant?
Is
Okay.
there any kind of, is there any kind of access to get to the back of these buildings? If emergency services had to get on the backside?
So emergency services, I suppose, could pull into the parking lot south of the gym. But I see what you're saying there in the middle. No, it would just be the grass field. So, aside from them pulling onto the football field, no.
But there's access to get to the football field, to get behind the houses and.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they could pull onto 115th and then, pull onto the field in an emergency.
All right. Anything else? Okay, thank you. I guess we'll see if any member of the public wants to comment on your proposals. Anyone here who would like to speak on this proposal? A quiet group tonight. All right, thank you.
So just to clarify, Eric, they would have to come back anyway when they go to build anything up there.
For single family homes, site plan review is not required.
It's not required. for
So
single
what we're
family.
reviewing here is the subdivision.
Right,
They were nice enough to give us a footprint of their
Right.
proposal, so we understand that footprint, in order to have any kind of single family structure there, would require variances for minimum lot width and frontages.
So I guess the first order of business would be to take lead agency status if you're so inclined. Is there a motion?
yeah, I'll move to declare the planning board as lead agency.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item, I guess, would be completeness.
I make a motion to declare the application complete.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Next, I guess we'll consider a recommendation to the zoning board as to whether or not to approve the variances requested. Frontage and minimum lot width, I guess.
Yes, the question is, do they have to come back after this, or do we go again like we conditioned?
They have to go.
They still have to come back for one more meeting
They have to come back
Yes.
for another hearing.
for their
Yes.
hearing, yeah.
And if we say
Correct.
they're approved tonight, conditioned upon zoning board.
No, you,
No.
you
They have
you
to
won't
come
be,
back for another hearing.
yeah, you won't be motioning any approval tonight. You
Right.
you might just motion a recommendation to the ZBA.
And then we'll schedule a hearing.
So
Is there a motion?
But you don't have to recommend to the ZBA either. It's.
Right.
they have to go either way, right?
They have to go.
They have to go.
So I mean.
So we could just, move to schedule a hearing
Yeah, we don't
based
have to.
on
Based on what the ZBA says.
them going to the ZBA.
Right.
If they don't show up. Yeah,
No. So it's discretionary whether you want to make a recommendation with respect to the approval or not. Is there such a motion?
No, they have to
No?
go to the ZBA, so they just come back when they're ready. I mean, will they be able to go to the next ZBA meeting, or is it's not
won't make
enough
it in
time in
time.
between?
I don't think, to avoid what happened with our last project, the 30 days in seeker, February wouldn't work. We'd probably have to go first week of March.
This is an unlisted action, so it's an
Oh.
uncoordinated review. And, we don't have to abide by the same type 1 requirements to do 30 days. The board could act as if they were the only agency involved if they wanted to.
I guess my next question would be, I don't know that I have an official submission into Angie. So is that, did I miss
Sorry, I
it?
couldn't hear you.
Sorry, I don't know if we've made an official submission to the zoning board yet. I don't know if we've missed a deadline for this February meeting.
Yeah, I'd have to check with her. If you didn't apply yet, then I think the deadline is 3 weeks. and
Right,
I think
which-
we're a little under 3 weeks.
So this pertains to scheduling the hearing?
This pertains to
No.
their,
No.
Pertains to whether or not they can get, how soon they can get before the zoning board.
Right, but they won't come back to us until after. they
That's
do
correct.
that. So
Yeah.
we can schedule it, but we'd have to schedule it further out if we don't know.
Right, you could also just let them go to the zoning board and then they'll notify Eric when they're ready to come back.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can,
Do
I
that.
was gonna suggest the March meeting, because I don't think we'll get on the zoning board until that first week in March, and then we come before you the week or two after that. So. if
But
you're
we
gonna-
could get you on the March agenda without having to schedule it tonight. Is that correct?
no, we haven't scheduled a hearing here. The motion needs to be made to schedule a hearing.
Oh, so.
You could schedule the hearing for March, and if they're not ready, then we can just remove
just
them.
table it. Okay.
But
All right.
it's kind of a one-way street.
First of all, on the question of recommendation, we agreed we're not going to make a recommendation. No one's moving to make a recommendation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Recommendation to the zoning board. whether or not.
We don't have
So
to-
there's no motion to, no approval or recommendation, I'm sorry, to the ZBA. So the next question is to schedule hearing. For the March meeting, is there a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I'll move to schedule a hearing for
March 18th.
2025-0002, March 18th.
Okay, second,
I'll second it.
discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All in favor, unanimous, I'm sorry, so approved.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Yeah, we could call this. So the next item is 2024-0053. The applicant here. Anyone here on 2024-0053? 74 New Turnpike? You can get ready, but we'll wait until the other board member gets back, please.
Gotcha. Good evening.
Hi. Okay,
Hi,
thank you. Hi.
good evening. Andy Brick from the Brick Law Firm. On behalf of Gulfstream Developers LLC, Anthony Casal, principal, is here with me, as well as Karen Lodzianowski from Bowler Engineer, our project engineer. The project is at 74 New Turnpike Road. It's the former Leonard Hospital site. You saw this concept a few months back. We're appearing here again tonight because subsequent to that meeting and in discussions with staff and evaluating the need for variances that would be required based upon the innovative concept that we're proposing, it was determined that seeking a planned district designation, a PDD zoning designation from the city council may be the most appropriate and innovative zoning tool to utilize to make a project like this happen. So we're here this evening to start the process to seek a PDD rezoning from the city council. And under your new zoning code, which was enacted in April of 2023, that process starts with a submission of site plan application to the planning board. And then the planning board has a dual role in the process. And it is one, to consider and eventually hopefully approve a site plan, but also two, to make a recommendation to the city council on the merits of the proposed PDD. So that's the process we're beginning to engage in tonight. What I would suggest is we'll have Karen refresh your memory of the site plan, walk you through the site plan and give you any updates since she's seen it, you've seen it last. And I know it's scheduled for a public hearing, so we'll take any public comments that may be had, and then we can come back and answer any public comments, board concerns, and then talk about, the next steps and the next actions that we've been seeking. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening. Karen Majanowski from Bowler Engineering. For the record, as Andy mentioned, we were here a couple of months ago to introduce this project on this parcel and this concept. As a refresher, it's about 7 acres in size, and it's unique in that we're proposing tiny homes, essentially 86 of them of 4 different sizes, ranging from 500, 600, 700, and 800 square feet approximately on the parcel. The owner would own the entire project and property and maintain these homes, which we see as a benefit so that everything is kept up and maintained the same. So that is part of this proposal, that it would remain as one parcel with the 86 homes on it. In looking at the current zoning for the city and for this zone, it speaks very much to a downtown, a dense feel with what is in the code and what we would be up against there. Things such as a 0-foot setback, lot coverage at a 60% minimum, which is significant. As you can see, we have a lot of green space here and stormwater areas. A minimum structure height of 1.5 stories. These would be 1-story homes, again, very small square footage, as we mentioned. We would be up against a minimum size of 720 square feet. So these are all things that we want to change and incorporate into this project as part of the proposed PDD, which we think works well for this specific property for a redevelopment for this area based on the neighborhood around us with other single-family homes. That is all part of our proposal that's here. It would also allow us to have greater setbacks to our neighbors. So that's all part of the plan that we're seeking with this. The layout and scope itself hasn't changed essentially since we were here in November to introduce this. What's really changed is the PDD approach and getting a comfort level that we can incorporate this layout and density of this project that's here. Also, as a refresher, we do have frontage in 2 areas to New Turnpike Road. So the site is designed well for emergency access. The road network within would be private and privately maintained, but obviously access in and out, especially for emergency vehicles. So we do have a loop system that brings you around so that there's no dead end, there's full circulation around the property itself. Roadways of 24 or 30 feet that vary. and then driveways to the homes, as you can see. Overall, though, we think it's a great redevelopment. As discussed previously, less traffic than the hospital use, and trip generations are there to back that up. This is 55 and over, so we anticipate much less vehicle trips than the previous use of the hospital. So as mentioned, we're here to gain any other feedback from the board and the public this evening, and hopefully get a recommendation to the city council.
So is tenancy going to be restricted to 55 and older?
It is.
Okay.
Is there, I know you're saying 55 and older, but us older folk like to have company. I don't see where there is, if each, so you've got one parking spot that's between two buildings, right? I mean, the one
Each
parking
one would
area
have
is
at least
between the
one.
two buildings.
Correct.
So there's one car for each side.
Correct. In some instances, we can get two for each side.
Okay.
It all depends on which one and the width.
Okay, so I'm having a Christmas party and I'm having company. I've got tiny house, might have 2 or 3 visitors, 3 visitors, but what if they each had a car? There's not, I don't think it's wide enough streets in order for a car to park on the street and still have emergency vehicles or whatever needs to go through there.
So it would be similar to a neighborhood, any other neighborhood where you would have visitors to your home that would park on the street. We can look at the actual width and make sure the fire department's comfortable with that as far as the roads go, and the possibility of some street parking.
I mean, I would assume you would have to have some street parking.
We will, yes.
Okay, and the roads would have to be certainly wide enough. I think your middle area has too many houses in it. What is, so between each property, say on the very northern section, you have A and B. How far is it from lot A to lot B?
So it would all remain one lot. So we're not dividing up and having separate lots, but the area around it and the spacing would be at least 10 feet between them.
Between the building or?
Yes, between the building.
Building. The back to back is 10 feet.
Yes, at a minimum.
And your stormwater management area, what does that consist of? What is going to be in there? Is there something you have to put in there? Is that all underground or what is that?
So those would be basins. So you would see vegetation and a depression in the land.
Okay. Is there any, I'm sorry, Peter, is there any thought to, I saw some of the drawings that you had in here for the tiny houses. They probably all have a little front porch. Is there any place? You're talking about a tiny house, you want to have a summer party. Is there any concept to put any little back patios where you could have a barbecue? Anything like that is?
That's a possibility, yes.
So making a little patio or just being on the grass?
We can look if there's room for certain homes to have an actual patio area versus grass. It's probably not realistic for all of them.
Yeah.
But we can look at that.
On your previous drawing, can you go back to that? So what, in front of the houses there, it looks to me like green. Is that a lawn in front of the houses?
Yes,
And then, so the gray is the parking area?
that's correct.
And they're built to hold 2 cars, one for each house or?
A minimum of one for each house.
Okay, so I don't see where there would be room for off-street parking. Wouldn't they be blocking somebody's driveway? How wide are those green spaces?
So they vary. A lot of them could likely fit one car. So that's where the street parking would occur.
But
That's
total, do you have an idea of how many total on-street parking spaces it would be?
We'd have to count that up. Yeah.
It looks like not many. So if
No.
Tony's gonna have a party, you
Yeah,
gotta limit the attendees. Okay, well, thank you.
In your, you said there are a story and a half. Is there going to be storage upstairs where you can have a drop-down little attic area?
So
Um,
that was the code I was quoting. It's currently a minimum 1.5 story. We'd be seeking 1 story.
You'd be seeking one
So these
story.
would be 1-story homes.
So I'm just throwing questions out there. If I move from my house, okay, 1,700 square feet, full basement, full attic, all kinds of storage for Christmas, fall. Where do all these people put anything that they might want to downgrade, but still have something to decorate with? I mean, a 500 square foot house, you're not gonna have you'll barely have enough room for people's clothing and coats and shoes and.
Yeah, this would definitely be a downsized
That's
type
a
of living.
definite
There's no basement.
downsize,
Yeah.
I
That's the
mean-
intent.
Where would you put a Christmas tree?
Closet space.
That's tiny.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any, you have anything further, Andy, anything?
We just wanted to hear any public comment.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak on this proposal? Welcome.
How are you?
Hey.
I'm Jared Berenger. I'm the Deputy Chief for the City of Troy Fire Department. So we've had some staff notes, and we do have some similar concerns about the widths of the street. So we would like, under New York State Fire Code, under the appendix, we'd like to see 26 as the minimum. 26 feet is the width of the minimum. And we also have some concerns about the radius around that island area. And we think it's a little over congested, too tight for what would be our turning radius. So we can work through that and find that and make sure that that's all engineered through.
Do we have your turning radius?
We can get that for you. So we'll work with you guys with that. But we would like to see the minimum be no less than 26 feet for street.
Appendix D.
Appendix D 103. And then we have concerns about. Ooh, I'm sorry. Concerns about the snow removal and places like that. If there's enough room on the site on that parcel for snow removal, especially during the winter months, because that's going to clog up and congest that area as well. And the amount of fire hydrants that are going to be on there, we'll work with you on that, just because that island in there just puts a little bit of a different length between those. And then one consideration that's going to have to go through is the maintenance of once those fire hydrants are installed, you're going to have to come to our specs for the city, and we'll work with DPU, but you guys will be required to maintain all of that. All right. So those are just a couple of our concerns with that.
Okay, thanks, chief.
Thank you.
Just for the record, we appreciate the fire department taking the time to look at that. We will work with them and we will address any concern they have. We want them to be very happy with our final design. So we will address all these.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak on the proposal? Okay, so Andy, what would you like us to do next?
I have a list. If you're willing to close the public hearing, I'd also think you're in a position where you can consider declaring yourselves lead agency under seeker. The city council, obviously with the PDD final authority, would be an involved agency. But in my experience, most PDDs, the municipal legislative body would look to the planning agency to be the lead agency, just because you have a little bit more expertise in the secret process. So we think you're an appropriate lead agency. So we'd ask you to consider that. we would ask you to refer our application to the County Planning Department pursuant to General Municipal Law 239M, because we believe that it does require the county referral. We'd ask, if you're going to declare lead agency, if you can let us know what you want to see, what you don't have in the file that you do want to see and review to get you to a position where you would consider a negative declaration. We're not asking you to do that tonight, but if there's anything outstanding, I know in staff notes, Eric wanted to see a lighting plan and some other things, traffic demand management plan, which we will provide. When the TDMP was added into the new zoning code, it really was to address parking issues and parking requirements in the downtown area. So it's not really completely applicable to where we are in the city, but we will submit one. And clearly, since we're doing everything off of the public street, we can easily comply with the TDMP. So we'll get that to you. And then also, if you would consider making a positive recommendation to the city council, not a site plan approval. We know we have some work to do to get you to a point where you will approve a site plan. But if you agree with the concept, with the idea that we can utilize the PDD process to place a project on this property, subject to obtaining eventual site plan approval, and you're willing to make that recommendation to the city council that we think a PDD would be effective and applicable on this property, that gives us the ability to jumpstart the process with them, because we do want to move the process forward as quickly as we possibly can. Our goal is to hopefully be in the ground in spring so we can be constructing and then close in all of the units. So by next winter, that we can be working inside and finishing the interior construction. That's our goal. We want to get going as quickly as possible. We think it's a great project. I've gotten a lot of people in the land use field reached out to me and asked me about it because it is so new, it's so cutting edge, and it's kind of exciting to be involved in, and it's kind of exciting. Troy is going to be the first place to have a project like this. So we do thank you for giving us the time, and we're here to answer any other questions you may have.
Andy, how close are you to the city line?
Oh, we're a good distance from the city line. I don't think we're within 500 feet of the city line.
Okay.
Oh. That's why I shouldn't ask engineering questions. Karen says, yeah, we're close enough that we need the county.
So we're going to also have to notify Scotticoke or Brunswick?
Scotticoke.
Scotticoke.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Scotticoke would also have to approve the PDD.
No, Scotticoke is just under general municipal law, they're entitled to notice of the project, to raise any objections they might have to the project, and to that's essentially it. Okay, and also they would be notified as far as you being a lead agency also.
Mhm.
They don't have there's no approval necessary from them, but the law does give them the ability to submit comments or object or support, but there is a notification requirement. Rick's completely
What's the
correct.
footage that triggers that?
I believe it's 500.
So if they're out, if Scotticoke's 500 feet away from the property line? Or-
Pro-
Yes.
From the boundary of from the project to the city line.
Right, okay.
I knew it was close. I just didn't know
Yeah.
how close.
Okay. Anything further, Andy?
Nope. Thank you.
All right, so I guess would the first order of business be then to declare lead agency status? Or is that-
I'd like to make a motion to declare the planning board as lead agency.
Second,
I'll second it.
discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we determine status type 1 and this time?
Seeker type 1.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to you.
It's the type 1. Yeah. I believe it's a type 1.
Yeah. So we have it as.
So if you want to determine, if you want to pick that, yeah, but not make the final determination yet. I don't-
So they can move to declare the project a type 1 seeker.
Second,
Second.
discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we need a motion to refer to the county planning department. Is
City
that just a
council.
staff function? or-
That'll be a staff function.
City
You
council.
you've declared yourselves the lead agency, so the staff will notify the county and Scotticoke.
And then the next order would be a recommendation to the city council, if you want to make one.
Yeah, I'd like to move to recommend approval of the PDD contingent or on the proposal still has site plan approval in front of the planning board. So we could recommend to the city council, but they gotta come back to us.
Okay. Second,
A second.
discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have to do something with respect to public comment period? Andy said we should close, wanted us to close the public hearing. Haven't had a hearing.
I'd probably recommend to keep it open
Yeah.
until we have some more information.
Okay, so no motion with respect to public hearing comment. All right, is there any other activity with respect to this application for tonight?
You guys might want to, they're asking for a list of any items that you would like to see in terms of additional studies or just documents that help your understanding of the project. So if you guys don't have a list of them, then I suppose, you could email me, but that would be helpful for the applicant to know so that they can have a full package for you.
Not to put you on the spot this evening, but if you do think of anything, you just let Eric know. He can reach out to us and we'll make sure it's incorporated into our next submission.
I understand that there was a report from CHA with respect to the environmental conditions there, but that's outdated, I take it, right?
Yeah, that report was a phase one environmental assessment by Clough Harbor, and it was done prior to the demolition. So it addresses a lot of things that related to the building that are no longer applicable because the building was remediated, removed, the site was cleaned and leveled. So any concerns that they had raised had been addressed during the demolition process. To our knowledge, it's a clean, clear site, and all of their concerns had been addressed.
So, I think we move on to the next. Anyone have anything that they want to provide at this time, or you take your time and email them to Eric, and Eric can consolidate them and send them to the applicant? All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you again.
June 2751.
Next item is 20250001. 0001, 2751 Fifth Ave. Let's go. You ready?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to allow us to present here. So what we're going to be presenting today is 2751 Fifth Avenue, the redevelopment, repurposing of the site. With me here tonight is Kelsey Carr with Labella Engineering, Tom Sullivan, who's with Home Leasing, who's our joint venture partner, Online, we have Angela I. Schultz, who's also one of our partners from Home Leasing, as well as Ken Syvertson from Syvertson Ragosu, who's our architect on the project. So before getting into the whole project here, I think there's three main pillars that are really the driving force behind our vision for this project. And I think that these are all pillars that are driven by what the goals are for the city and what the mayor set forth as goals for development in the area. And that's really starting with, one is removing blighted sites and putting them back onto the tax roll. Two is being able to solve for the extreme shortage in affordable senior housing. And three is creating the connectivity and corridors that creates the gateway between North Central and downtown Troy. So to introduce myself, my name is Sumit Gupta. I'm with Five Corners Development. You may recognize my name. I was previously with Hoboken Brownstone working on a project here in Troy a handful of years ago. Around 2021, I decided to go out and launch this business called Five Corners with the purpose of focusing exclusively on development opportunities, multifamily specifically, both market rate as well as affordable in the capital region. I was born and raised in the area, and now I've moved back here permanently, working on these types of initiatives. Our focus is really on urban environments and being able to create affordable housing opportunities. Right now, we've got active developments in Saratoga, Amsterdam, Troy, obviously, and Schenectady, and soon to announce a couple more down the road. As we were going through the process here with this specific site, we realized that there was a big need here, especially North Central, to focus on affordability. So we decided to bring in a great partner that has the background and experience, who've done this for many years. Not only are they great partners that have the experience on affordable housing, both senior and family, they're vertically integrated, and they have a very strong property management background and local presence. So hopefully I didn't take too much away from your thunder here, Tom, but would love to have you talk a little bit about home leasing.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Sullivan, a project executive for Home Leasing. And as Sumit mentioned, we're vertically integrated. So we go from the design pre-construction process, we carry it into construction, and then we ultimately manage the properties, which gives us a very strong sense and commitment to all the projects we build, the communities in essence we build, and all the residents we serve. Me personally, I'm on the construction side of it. So I'm up here in Albany. Home Leasing currently has several completed projects: Clinton Avenue Phase 1, Renaissance Square. We're currently doing a project in Schenectady, 90 Elmer Avenue. That's a senior development. And then we're heavily engaged, currently in progress, over on Clinton Avenue. New build, and then we also have historic renovation. So this project, just everything it represents and what you just heard is right up our alley. The tougher the project, because the site, as you know, is a challenge, and there's a lot of environmental challenges with it. That's what attracts us to these projects, and the needs of the community to present something that is going to be beneficial for all, not only the residents, but for the city. And we not only, as I say, develop, build, and property manage, but we're in for the long haul. We're vertically integrated, 3-generation owned, family owned company. And we take a lot of pride and joy in what we do. And I'm up here, I'm actually based in Rochester. I'm here, majority of the week, every week, working with our construction teams. Our construction teams are all Home Leasing employees. So that gives us a very strong edge, but sometimes developers and other companies may farm that out to a third-party agency. So that's part of that integration process. So we stay connected all the way through the process to make sure we're delivering that end goal product that's going to provide the most quality, functionality, and benefit the residents on the tail end when they move in. Thank you.
So with that, we'll give you a little bit of background on the specific parcels here. So as you can see on the screen, there are 3 parcels that make up a total of 0.83 acres. In fact, one of the parcels, the one in the far left or the furthest south, is actually a property that we bought out of Troy, the foreclosure process, city-owned property. to aggregate it into our overall design. One of the things that Kelsey is going to touch upon is, and I think Tom mentioned it as well, is that there is a lot of financial difficulty and constraints on the site that make it a very difficult site to create the design that I think we've done a great job with. To mention that high level, so not only does the site have a lot of topography issues, but it's a remediation site that's most likely going to be a brownfield candidate. And there's also bedrock that's either sitting directly below the surface of the site or otherwise coming out above the site. To the north and south is North Street and Rensselaer Street respectively. To the east is Mount Olympus, as you guys refer to it. And then to the west is North First Alleyway before you get to River Street. So just to give you a quick background as to why we were interested in North Central. So going back a handful of years ago, we were working very closely. This is through a separate partnership. We were working very closely with the Troy Land Bank. And since then, we've acquired a handful of properties that were either condemned or dilapidated state, where we've invested significant amount of dollars rehabbing those properties and turning them around. And it really got us attracted to the revitalization of the North Central area. Obviously, then the DRI came along, and there was a big focus on creating that gateway corridor. And now we're seeing the fruits of your labor that's come to fruition with Barden Grocery and some of the other efforts that First Columbia is putting forth on River Street. And then in addition to that, there was the Recode Troy, which effectively said that there's, in North Central specifically, there's a relic of old industrial and auto dealership or auto service sites that just sat vacant, such as the one we're talking about here tonight. And the whole goal was to change the zoning to allow for more housing and specifically call for affordable housing. And then the last thing, which is probably the most relevant, is that we've had conversations with the Troy Housing Authority, and they've said that the biggest wait list queues that they have right now are for seniors. With the 3 or 4 buildings they own, they have over 2,500 people that are currently waiting to be able to afford to live in these types of facilities. So we decided to focus our attention on being able to deliver senior housing, creates the gateway, continues the rejuvenation that's been started because of the DRI, and follows through with what the zoning code is looking for. So with that said, despite all of our challenges, despite all of the site challenges, we're here. We think we have a project that is going to be perceived well, but I'd like for you guys to hear a little bit more from Kelsey about some of the site conditions currently.
Thanks, everybody. Kelsey Carr with Labella Associates. So the existing property has been vacant since early 2023, with the existing buildings in very poor condition and actually now condemned by the city. So the foundation at the rear of the main building, as you can see from the bottom middle photo, is actually starting to crumble and fall apart. So the building really needs to come down in short order. As Sumit indicated, the site has about 25 feet of grade change from east to west, and there's shallow bedrock generally about 2 feet below grade, with areas of bedrock outcropping at the northern edge and along the western slope. The site has had historic industrial use since the late 1800s, and that has resulted in soil contamination, which we are planning to clean up as part of this redevelopment. And the most recent use as the First American Towing and Recovery is actually not a permitted use under the current zoning that was established with Recode Troy. And in addition, the existing site configuration does not conform to the dimensional standards of the Neighborhood 3 development intensity zone. So understanding all of those existing site constraints, our team really set out to create a redevelopment plan that is consistent with the intent and goals of the current zoning, and as well as the needs of the neighborhood, while at the same time overcoming the site hardships that render almost half of the property area unbuildable. So these are some of the concept views of our proposed building. So financially, it's not feasible to excavate the rock. And so that drove the design for ground floor parking with an area of unexcavated rock at the northern end. The first floor and actually the first through fourth floors will actually then extend over this rock outcropping in order to maximize the building footprint and recapture a portion of that unbuildable land. So by providing the 4 stories of residential units, we'll be able to help meet an identified need for senior affordable housing in this neighborhood as well as the city. So looking at the view shed, the proposed 5-story building will not obstruct the views for properties to the east of the site because their views of the river are already obstructed by what is known as Mount Olympus, which is the exposed rock mound that's in the forefront of this image. And then looking at the views to the west from the site toward the river, as we had indicated, the site sits about 25 feet above the alley and River Street. So all of the residential floors will have great views of the river. So the proposed redevelopment includes, as we've indicated, a 73-unit 5-story building with 23 ground floor enclosed parking spaces, as well as 7 exterior spaces for ADA and visitors, with 14 on-street parking spaces available along the property frontage. So in total, we're providing 44 spaces, which will exceed the 32 spaces that are needed based on ITE industry standard data for the senior affordable housing use. So under the existing condition, the asphalt actually extends all the way from the roadway to the existing property fence. So there's no clear pedestrian or like safe pedestrian zone along the frontage. So this will be resolved as part of the redevelopment by providing new granite curb and concrete sidewalk along the frontage. There will be 2 dual electric vehicle charging stations at the exterior spaces, which is required by the code. There will also be an exterior bike rack near the main entrance of the building. And we're still evaluating the interior bike storage requirement. As you know, the senior housing use will likely have a lower demand for bike storage. So we will most likely be requesting a waiver for that requirement. But one thing to note is that all of the units will have a long-term storage within the building, which will have enough space for a bike if the resident chose that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken to discuss the architecture.
I think I have the easy part now. So as
Can you
Sumit said,
identify yourself?
Ken Syvertson, Syvertson Reviews Architects. So a little bit less than an acre. We're roughly 18,000 square feet of floor plate. And what we've designed is 73 affordable senior apartments, which is 62 1-bedrooms, 3 studios, and the rest 8 2-bedrooms. So as Kelsey indicated, we have a lot of grade change on this project. So going from the plan south or on the south of the sheet going up, it slopes relatively from elevation 68 down to 64. But what we've done is we have it so that you can come into the building. So if you're driving, you can come into the building. This is a secured parking. So you need a key fob access, right? People just can't wander in. And then we have all parking on this level. This big gray area, this is where we have the bedrock outcropping here. So we're not being able to utilize that grade right there because we don't feel like blasting and chipping out any bedrock to put our building in. We have two exit stair towers. Each will have standpipes. It's a fully sprinklered building. If I'm a visitor, I come in here, we have a controlled access point. We have administrative offices here to greet residents or potential residents. We have a handicapped accessible elevator that goes to all the floors. What's nice about actually having the steep grade is all of our residential units will be elevated off of the ground, so we don't have to worry about break-ins and thefts. And you can see that on the elevations when we get in a little bit later, because everybody's going to be elevated at least 7 or 8 feet above the ground. So everything they see in green is a 1-bedroom. The 2 bedrooms are the blue, and then this is our 2nd and 3rd floor plate. It's the same floor, so no sense in showing it twice. And then we have a studio. We do have indoor amenities for the patrons. So there's like an exercise room, a community room. And then we actually have a nice rooftop terrace with hopefully some nice views of the river when we're done. And then as far as the outside, we wanted to break up the elevation, scale it a little bit. So we actually have face break, masonry all along the 1st floor on the street side. We have a stair tower element, verticality, and then we have this entry element where people come in to enter the building. So it's a sort of like a beacon to let you know where to. It's right to the left of all the parking. And that's pretty much what it looks like. So this is when Kelsey was doing her presentation, you saw that the 7 parking spots were nestled in between these 2 building wings. This is the entry element, so I know where to go I'm making a pizza delivery. And then this is the overhead door. You can see like all of the residential units are elevated up off of the street, which is kind of nice for all the residents.
How many square feet in the units?
The units. So a one bedroom. So with HCR, they they have a range. So units are between 600 and 800 square feet. You can't exceed it, can't go below it. So we are kind of like smack dab in the middle with a one bedroom at 660 square feet. So all of the unit sizes are dictated by the New York State HCR, Housing Community Renewal, and they give us a range that we have to comply with. And they give us standards, linear feet of cabinets, storage, bathroom space, stuff like that. Is the presentation that awesome that there's no questions?
No, I have a couple of
Oh, darn it.
questions. So you have 7 parking spots in the front, and she said something about off-street parking also,
23 at the ground floor. And then there's 14 on street.
14 on-street. So Fifth Avenue there is wide enough to have on-street parking?
Yep.
Okay. And I noticed that your trash, for the people that are up on the top floors, they have quite a ways to walk to get to a trash room. Yes, no?
It's not really that far.
How long is your building?
I don't recall offhand, but it's less than 200 feet, I believe, to the trash room.
And you don't think that 5 floors is gonna be from looking
There's a
from
trash chute.
River Street to the 5th floor, it's gonna be like looking up in the sky. I mean, that's a really tall building, I think, to put there. You're 25 feet from the alley, right? 25 feet down to the alley. So you're 25 feet up, and then you're putting 5 floors on top of that.
From the alley. We're saying from North First Street, the alleyway.
The alleyway between, yeah,
Yes.
the back of the ale house or on
Yeah.
that side. So that, and I drove through that alleyway today. They're not even using the
Tony,
whole
Tony, can
alley.
you show my?
I'm sorry.
It's not well maintained. Yeah.
It's not maintained at
Yeah.
all. There's a tree down and nobody's even gotten in the middle of the alley since the snow that I saw. But I kind of think that that's kind of high for that piece of property.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the reason why we're requesting the height that we are is because of the constraints on the site that exist today, right? If there wasn't bedrock, we could go under and put a base and put parking underground. If there wasn't site remediation, that's going to cost millions of dollars, like we could reconsider the density. If there wasn't the topography the way it is, we could actually utilize the site where per code, I think we're allowed to go up to 80% impervious coverage. And because of the fact with all the land that's there in the topography, we're using less than 50%. So all those reasons are forcing a smaller
Going up.
footprint and therefore forcing us to go vertical in order to get the density to make it a financially viable project.
So
And-
do you
and
have
just-
a picture of what the back of the building is gonna look like?
On here,
Kind
we
of,
have
sorta?
this. Yeah, on the top right there, you can see the back of the building. So you can't really see from this angle what the slope is off the back, but do you have a sense of what's that angle that goes down?
It's steeper, yeah, it's up to like 75% slope for parts of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just to answer the question about the garbage, so each floor has its own garbage room.
Right.
Right, and then our maintenance will come in and take the garbage
Right.
down to the dumpster inside the garage, and then we'll take the dumpster out.
So your garbage is mainly right off of where you come into the building or whether your stairways and everything are.
Correct, the garbage rooms, yep.
Yeah.
So it's bedrock on the whole site. Stormwater, how's that gonna work?
So the site is less than an acre, so it's
Yeah.
only 0.83, and we're serving about half of that. But we're actually reducing impervious over existing conditions. So we'll have less runoff and less pollutants.
But you're tying into city stormwater?
There is no city infrastructure for stormwater along either of those roads except at the intersections. So currently the building discharges down to the alley, and that's what we would be planning to do.
On the surface?
Questions?
No.
I'd like to move to declare lead agency.
Second,
A second.
discussion?
Please. Oh, public comment.
Yes. Let's do that first.
So Jared Berenger, Deputy Chief of the City of Troy Fire Department. So we love what the building looks like. And yes, it's an obvious eyesore, but we have significant concerns about affordable senior on call volume for the city and how much we can withstand. In that area in North Central, affordable senior housing is starting to take over. There is very large demand on the city fire department. The fire department also runs EMS, and it's very taxing. To show a difference between market rate and affordable housing, just within one block of this proposed site, you have 701 River Street, which is the former Marshall Ray building that sits next to Bellinopoly.
Right.
Last year, that's a full market rate, 70 units. There was one call there. Now, if you go to 599 River Street, which is 2 blocks south, there were 200 calls there in 2024. That's affordable, mostly senior housing. Next door to that is 621 River. There were 180 calls at 621 River. So we're not saying that we dislike the development on this site, but we just need to make sure that the controls are there by property management from day one. And I love what we're hearing. Listen, and I love what we're hearing, but we've all heard it before. All right. And in 21 years that I've been here, our call volume has now doubled with no change in man. So our crews are flat out, especially with senior affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing against that. I know there's a big push for affordable housing, but you guys are going to be declaring lead agency. This should be a positive declaration just based on what it's going to take for the community, resources within the community, fire, police. So, and what we want to set up and make sure that it's done right from day one. We've had to take some action with other locations. For instance, 752nd Avenue, which is the old Standard Manufacturing Building.
Mhm.
First 2 weeks that we were there, we had that they populated that building and gained their CO. We had nothing but issues, numerous calls, and we've worked with them to help redevelop and refunction their fire alarm systems. And they've had to put into effect more controls with their tenants and more control on that in that aspect. One thing I would like to see with this building is no smoking. There should be no smoking within the building at all. The nuisance alarms at those other locations of 599, 621, we are there 3, possibly 4 times a day, just on smoking alone, marijuana and cigarettes. And we're seeing it larger influx, even Troy Housing. We talked about, you guys brought up Troy Housing, and the 3 buildings that are right around Central Station right there make up a huge amount of our call volume just because that's senior affordable housing. Nothing against senior affordable housing, but it's going to be a taxing role moving forward for the City of Troy Fire Department.
What are the typical calls? I know Monument Square Apartments in downtown say every day.
There's mostly false alarms for fire alarms, false alarms for fire alarms because of improper installation, controls, and maintenance of the smoke alarm and fire alarm systems. And then we also have numerous EMS calls at those locations as well. So those are some things that I want you guys to take into effect as a board that, moving forward for any development throughout the city, that we're at our breaking point right now.
Mhm.
And every year it's been a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, but we're at 14,000 calls a year.
How do you think a developer can mitigate those calls with the population?
It's going to be a strong working development with the leasing company. And so I love the fact that you guys are going to be there from ground, day one. And we don't see that typically. We don't see that typically. And it's those property maintenance companies that are, the turnover is great and we need to make sure that the controls of having close first responders when we need them, when we have issues within the building, and then we're not waiting hours and hours for a responder to get there. We also need to make sure that the system is meant in up to date and just kept in monthly, daily, yearly maintenance for every aspect of the building. Because once it starts to slip is when we start to find more and more problems.
And if I could, Bill,
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that. One of our strongest components for our company is.
Use the mic,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry. Hey, I appreciate you sharing those comments. One of the strongest components of home leasing is we have over 1,500 senior units in our portfolio going across the 90 corridor, everywhere from the Buffalo region to here in Albany in the Capital region. And what makes us really strong in that is because that vertical integration we spoke of earlier, our property management folks who typically, some companies, that's maybe one of the later things you think about. They're right there at the table with us in the design pre-construction process. And we not only develop the features for the building to all what we talked about, life safety, critically important. And we've had enormous success throughout our facilities with that, but it's building in all those safeguards, building in the protocols of how are we going to manage it? How are we going to staff it? All those things are considered and talked about and implemented from day one. So that's something that really separates us from a lot of the other organizations out there that do similar to what we do. And we're very proud of that. We actually have a project in Rochester. Everybody probably knows Hickey Freeman, the suit company. Well, we purchased that property and we were instrumental not only in saving that company, they downsized in a 300,000 square foot approximate building, but we built over 150 plus units in there, senior housing. So we have the project in Schenectady that's probably coming online in April, end April. That's going to be senior housing too. But all these projects that we do, again, from day one. And we've learned those lessons very early on years ago. And that's what made us really get to that. So, and we heavily, work with our partners, the fire department, police department, the city, and we want to get their input and their involvement to make sure we adhere to things that are important, things that are troublesome that, if in its early process, we could go with this project, we want to hear that because we're going to build that in and solve those problems now versus dealing with, the nuisance calls and stuff later. So at the end of all of this, the important part for our team is what's the residents' experience? They're seniors. We want to make sure they're enjoying, they're comfortable, and they're getting the full quality that they deserve. And that's what our properties provide. So I don't know, hopefully that helps answer a little bit.
It does. It absolutely does. And, after hearing that aspect of the property management is going to be there from day one, that's very huge because we don't see that very often. We don't.
Do you feel that, on the bigger issue and all the other buildings you spoke about, that it is the management not communicating with the tenants, or is it the leasing up front where, there's not guidelines in the lease to live by in this building?
I think that the leasing is from day one has to be put in those safeguards and aspects have to be put into no smoking, and you know what I mean? And very, defined, right? Very, very, very defined, right? Very defined that that, hey, 1, 2, 3 strikes, and then you could be there. It has to be very defined because that's what we're finding is when we start to have issues within buildings, we get numerous trouble alarms because people are removing their fire detection equipment within their own apartments because they don't want to set it off with illegal activity in a lot of these places. And property maintenance is behind the 8 ball just because of they don't have those items set up. So that's one thing that we do want to work with together and just make sure all of that is in place as conditions of CO and things along those lines that we may be able to control from the get-go with these projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
So not to discount anything that you said, because we've heard about those same issues, but just to talk about some things that sort of set this apart beyond everything Tom just mentioned. And we are more than happy to sit down and talk about the safety protocols and controls that we'll have in place. In fact, we had a conversation this morning about the amount of cameras and security expense that we're putting into this project. And it's just the way that home leasing operates. But just not to disparage other projects or other developers or owners or managers, but the specific properties that you're referencing either have significantly different income profiles from what we're targeting. So on average, we're sort of targeting a $50,000 income. So you're really talking about mom and dad who've retired and there are pensioners or social security folks. The other thing is a lot of those the other projects you mentioned are very heavily supportive housing based. And I think that stereotypically speaking, that you're going to get a larger bias of some of the issues that you've seen, which is not what we're focused on.
I think that's very true across the board. And we're very happy to hear that part.
Jared, are some detection systems better than others that less prone to calling out nuisance calls and things like that?
Yes, and we're starting to work with different companies like that, so we can set up parameters and things like that we found have started to work, so we could start to knock some of those nuisance calls down. And we have seen improvement in a lot of locations after we've had finally some assistance from property management. That's just a few of our concerns, just with the larger influx of affordable and senior housing. So,
Okay, thank you, Chief. So we were on a motion for lead agency status, is that correct?
Yes.
You want to renew your motion, Chair?
Yeah, I'd like to declare the Troy Planning Board as lead agency under seeker.
Second,
Second.
discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Unanimous. Then the next issue would be to declare the application complete or not.
Looks to me like they have some variances.
They have to go to the zoning.
That they get here.
They're only allowed 3 stories. They want 5.
That's a height variance.
The size of the units also, I think. Yeah, it doesn't go into that. It might be. I'd say 700.
Yeah, I didn't have that down.
What were the average size of your unit? 720 or something?
660.
And what's the code? 7?
Yeah, it's 720. And I think the sum total of the average of dwelling habitable space. So
Does that include some common areas? Is that,
no.
no, just right, livable, rentable space. So they need a variance for that as well?
Yes, and they're going to have to go to the zoning board for all these variances,
Right.
but that when it comes time to consider the site plan in its entirety, you can always send it to the zoning board with make it conditional, I guess. But you're not there yet.
Clarify a little bit more. Within existing buildings, 700 square feet per dwelling unit, but this is a newly proposed building, so it's not applicable. 720 square feet for ground floor. It is a ground floor minimum, which they definitely exceed. So the square footage for the dwelling unit is not going to come into play
Sorry, I misled you for a second there.
Sure.
Okay, so um,
They need his height.
yeah,
Zoning board?
we're gonna have to figure out, they're gonna have to go with zoning, obviously.
Right.
They've got a lot of items here that they're gonna have to work out with.
Can I just clarify? So there are 3 variances that have been identified by the staff. We submitted an application for the building height for the additional 2 stories. We're going to amend that application to also include the parking setback because there's a 25-foot setback in this zone for parking, and we have the parking up front, the 7 spaces. And then also the transparency of the ground floor because we have it fully enclosed with no windows, and there is a transparency requirement. So those are the 3 variances that we are going to be requesting.
Because it's
Well, does that affect the completeness of the application?
No,
So that's the issue before us now is the completeness,
correct.
and we can
But
declare it complete, accept
You-
it as complete.
you can, I believe there are some studies contemplated that you don't have yet
Okay.
for,
Oh, you live in DEC environmental, right?
pardon me?
Have you done a phase 2?
Yes.
Yeah.
The stormwater management.
Stormwater.
So SWIP is not required, but you will be
Supposed to.
providing an urban runoff control. But we have a reduction in impervious, so that will show that.
Oh, please.
Sorry, we're going to be providing the urban runoff control plan, but that will show that we have a reduction in impervious or a reduction in stormwater runoff.
Yeah. Yeah, currently. Yeah, Rick is asking about the third-party engineering review, which we have yet to set up. They're going to be required under the current circumstances, and this may change in the very near future, but under the current circumstances, they'll be required to establish an escrow with us, and we'll have to put out quotes for that review with our short list of agencies.
It looks like what we're outstanding here, these zoning variances. The escrow setup and how it's reviewed by the engineer, so we don't have that. And so there's also, was there a variance required for some of the architectural guidelines? Is that an issue?
I think they are trying to address those with the transparency requirements.
Oh, okay, all right.
And then also, yes, this is another one that I don't think I heard you mention, but the building's entrance has to face the public right of way. You said that it's facing north, correct?
Yeah.
So I would probably just add that to your list. The variances though, just for the record, the variances don't impact more or less the application's completeness. Yeah.
What's your pleasure with respect to completeness?
I make a motion to consider the application complete.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Is that it with respect to this application then tonight?
Yeah, for now. I don't know that we want to schedule a hearing yet because we've got to get this reviewed by our third-party engineer.
Before we go to Zoom.
No, not before you go to zoning. You're hearing for your planning hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So are you guys on the agenda for zoning? You are? You submitted?
Yeah, just please double check with Angie in terms of her ability to amend the application. I'm pretty sure that it won't be a problem, but she'll confirm.
We're planning on 2 visits to the zoning board anyway.
So are we.
All All right, well, thank you. I guess we'll do the next.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're doing.
So we
bank.
already did 2025-0002. So the last item on tonight's agenda, is it?
It's Vandenberg, the bank.
Yeah. 2025-0003, 75-81 Vandenberg Avenue. Good evening. You want to identify yourself for the record then?
Good evening. One second, let me
Yep.
set up the
Take your
screen.
time.
I do have.
We're missing a board member right now. So.
Okay.
Did you wait for me?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
And we told him to set up and not make a move.
Okay.
We approved everything. while you're
It's showing? Okay.
Is there a, you know, do a staff review before they see this, right? Have you driven by River Street to look up where this building is going? The great big long thing that's.
It's a river, but on the same side as the house.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking
So it's a longish.
about. Yeah. And that's where this is.
This is right behind it, I can tell you that.
It's a big drop.
So when we were looking at it, you know, I was convincing Brian to buy it. There. And I'm like, this whole thing is shit. Bad. Run down and there is that hell is worth it. You can't. And she wants us to. It was so bad, you know, it was just rotting out the back of that area. So I mean, it's a natural kind of runoff. Right into Brian's building.
So I wonder with the building being there almost in the back,
Well,
will
I mean,
that
they're gonna
stop the water from maybe going this way instead of that way?
The thing is that the way it is right now, it's just a big parking lot, it's driven cars. Now, so he's gonna build a building that can catch the water and do something with it, you know, I don't know what, but.
But she said there is no.
No, there's no stormwater, so, I mean, some sort of engineering report on that, I would think.
Yeah, I just use CHA.
I mean, well, the way they have the building, it's almost like it's right on the very back of the property. So I'm assuming that if the water's going anyplace, it's going around the building.
This is of course.
Permeable stuff there, so.
Yeah, well, she says there's less permeable now.
We have everyone?
Okay,
Good evening.
we're ready if you are.
Okay,
Your whole audience has left you.
I know, it's an empty room. I have one audience member with me today. Stacy Fleischman, our VP of Retail Design, is online. So she's out there somewhere. My name is Ben Gingrich. I'm with HSB Architects representing KeyBank. We're here today to present a new KeyBank branch in front of Market 32 over on Vandenberg Avenue. It is about 2,800 square feet. So I've got a site map on screen showing the existing site with our bank branch overlaid with some photos. I'm happy to answer questions on any of this. I'll kind of just look through this and go through this. We're of course applying for our application of completeness today, or certification of completeness. We also received some comments from Eric Ferraro last week, which we're happy to discuss. And then finally, we were here back in October at BZA presenting variances which we received. We received a front setback variance, side setback, a variance to have a one-story building, and a variance to not face the public right of way. So you'll see some existing site photos. The existing space we're taking is just parking lot. So we're actually putting an important use here, reducing the impervious area and reducing the overall parking count of the site. We show kind of the existing map here with the bank overlaid as a dashed line. And our proposed bank includes a 2,800 square foot freestanding bank branch. It has a branch lobby, offices for normal banking kind of transactions. We have an auto teller, 2 auto teller lanes, and an ATM and a night drop. One of the things that was brought up by Eric last week in his comments was our application incorrectly stated that we had 45 parking spaces. But only new parking spaces are the 10 on the island. We're actually reducing significantly the number of spaces on site. So there are 10 parking spaces on the island. We are flexible on that because, as you can see, it is a bit overparked. There's other comments on here such as locations for snow storage. So it could be that we just stripe off some spaces and allocate them as snow storage. Because again, we do feel like we're overparked here. We have taken steps to significantly improve the site here. We've added a lot of landscape, I'll get the landscape sheet. Yeah, we've vastly improved over just the empty parking lot that's there now, reduce the pervious area, and are going to provide a great function to the community. These are our elevations here. So we like to use high quality materials on the bank branch. We are planning to use a stone base on the bank, so a high quality masonry stone base, a stucco wall panel. We're using red wall panel systems around the entrance. Oops. And we have this portal entrance here that faces the property south towards Wendy's. That's a great entrance, sort of really visually indicates entrance to the bank. There was also questions on the signage. We have a sign vendor who's going to be applying for the sign package separately. There are 3 signs shown, approximately 25 square feet apiece, but I'll let his sign package show the full calculated area. And then finally, there was a comment about traffic flows, which we're happy to provide that. We've got some data on traffic flows, which we can provide. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Again, we're looking for that certification of completeness tonight to schedule our public hearing.
Thank you. Questions?
No.
Okay. No questions.
Great.
All right. Lead agency status, is there a motion?
It's a type 2 action, so seeker is not part of the review.
Well, I mean, they can find that it's a type 2.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Seeker review is required.
Sure.
But I mean, they can. I guess what Eric's saying, you don't have to declare yourself lead agency if you are going to find that it is a type 2, because no secret review is required under that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then we would have a motion.
Declare, I'd like to move to declare the application for the Vandenberg Avenue project to type 2.
Second,
I'll second it.
discussion on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Application completeness.
All right, I'll make a motion that we accept this application as complete for Vandenberg.
Second,
I second.
discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. And then schedule hearing.
You ready next time?
What's the next?
For a
one?
hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. When's the next one? Eric, you mentioned March, but we could be available
No.
sooner.
Are you ready
For
for the
February?
hearing?
For a
We
hearing?
could do it.
Yeah.
We could do it.
We have some really minor amendments, such as amending the application. Because Eric identified that we had filled out the number of spaces incorrectly, but it's shown in the plan correctly. Also identifying snow storage. So we can amend that by next week and be ready.
Yeah, I would need materials for February by the 27th
We can do that.
or yeah, the 27th. I've got the staff meeting on the 28th.
So we're gonna have the hearing in February, at the February meeting?
February 18th.
Correct.
Motion?
February 18th.
I'd like to move to schedule a hearing on February 18th for this project.
Okay.
Second,
Second.
discussion on the motion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. February 18th.
Great. Thank you.
Is
Appreciate
there any
everyone's
other?
time this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, of
Take care.
course.
Is there any other business to come before the planning board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn for the night.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. And good night.